when you have all those obstacles in your way, you have to make a single choice. And your single choice is you either go after this $1 million business acquisition like it's oxygen, or kind of get off the track.
Today's guest is a street-smart Harvard MBA who's revolutionizing the way professionals escape the corporate grind and step into the world of multi-million-dollar business ownership fast. With over 15 years of expertise in small business acquisitions and a proprietary system that skyrockets success rates by 3 to 10 times, he's the ultimate business buying Sherpa for Main Street investors and everyday entrepreneurs. His clients don't waste years. They see results within 6 months. Let's dive into his strategies, mindsets, and tools to make your business dreams a reality. Welcome to the show, Elliott Holland.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Elliott, what makes business buying so challenging for most people, and why do 90% of buyers fail?
So the reality is, for most people who are trying to buy a business, they're already working a full-time job. And if they're going to buy $1 million business, they're probably working a job that's over 40 hours a week. So call it 50 or 60. My clients are in their 30s and 40s, oftentimes married with children. And so you're thinking job, wife, kids. And then after that, you're going to try to spend 10 to 20 hours a week attempting to buy a business. And now you're competing with people who don't have a job that does 60 hours a week, don't have a wife, don't have kids, people who can live at their parents' vacation house, people that have more means. And so 90% of people fail because A, they don't have to buy a business to still be successful. Many of them, their daily jobs will be okay. They just want more than that. Second, the process to go from like on a W-2 to an entrepreneur to a deal person to a person ready to take $1 million risk is a lot. And so there's a lot of reasons that make this sort of challenging but amazing opportunity hard.
What are the biggest mistakes you've seen buyers make, and how does your approach help them avoid these pitfalls?
They waste too much time in analysis paralysis, frankly. And I think there's a little bit of, I don't know if I can do this in every analysis paralysis. And so for me, my proprietary system helps people get through the evaluation period quicker. So when you see a deal, you should be able to figure something out in 30 minutes, not 3 days. And then you should do something about it. And so a lot of people sort of find that the deal is decent. Let me go do my 5-tab Excel model, or let me go try to do market research for a week to make sure this industry is great. And all that is malarkey. If you find a deal you like it in 30 minutes, you should send an offer for it and keep moving. And that's the basis of my proprietary system.
What patterns are you noticing among struggling buyers then, and how does your system address those recurring issues?
Well, they need a foot in their ass sometimes, to be completely honest. And this is coming from a person who needed a foot in his ass. So I'm not saying people need something I didn't need. It's more when you have all those obstacles in your way, you have to make a single choice. And your single choice is you either go after this $1 million business acquisition like it's oxygen, or kind of get off the track because you're encumbering everybody else with bull junk. And the reason I say that is because every positive thing you do in business acquisition gives you momentum. You talk to a lot of businesses this week, you talk to a lot of sellers this week, you put a lot of offers out this week. Even if the outcome is poor, the activity is high, and you start building this cycle of activity that gets you going and gets you way more likely to buy a business. And so the advice that I give is just to commit to the process for a finite period of time and actually get after it.
I've heard you talk about the $250,000 salary trap. What's the 250K salary trap, and why do so many high earners stay broke despite such an income?
Yeah, so the trap is you get on your W-2 job, and what do they always ask you? Where do you live? Where do your kids go to school? Where do you vacation? What kind of car you drive? How big is your house? So you spend your time in a company that knows the more things you have, the more you're beholden to them. And you spend all day talking to your coworkers about all the expensive stuff that you bought. That
Optimizing for
is
the wrong things.
malarkey. Yes. And so now you make a wage that absolutely can support a family on an absolute basis. $250,000 can. But you have so many house bills, vacation bills, car bills, that now like your ability to put cash aside to make investments is nil. And you've kind of talked yourself over 10 or 20 years into this trap. And now you're like, I want to get out of the trap, but you like your things. And so a lot of times what people have to do is kind of like almost like an exorcism and get those things on the sideline, right? Or at least prepare to. You know, a lot of my clients, when they buy companies, they end up leaving their house and renting it, right? A lot of folks who are leasing cars decide to give the car back to the dealership to get rid of those payments. So the $250,000 trap is that that's just enough money to make you feel rich and be poor.
Yep. You've got to refocus the resources, not just money, but time and mental effort as well. That makes
To give you
sense.
a particular example, like if you can go into your job and say, I drive a 10-year-old car, I live in a mediocre house or a duplex that I'm renting out the other side to keep my bills low. I vacation in the woods and cheap places that you'd never go, but are amazing because I reconnect with nature and my family. And now you can say, to heck with all of your concepts of my value. Now all this capital that I've saved gives me the ability to not take crap in my job, because you can't just tell me to do something now because I have a nest egg of cash. And because I have a nest egg of cash and you know it, because people with nest eggs of cash on jobs, you can always tell who they are because their swagger is a little different, right? And so now if you need to go take your 10, 20 hours to go do your own thing, but you're delivering on your job, your boss or management might not like it, but if you're delivering 3 to 10x what they're paying you, and they're truly economic capitalist people, they're going to keep you and you're going to still have your time. So that's the recommendation I give people, is sort of do your job so well that people may not like it, but they'll take it. And then spend this extra time going to fulfill your dreams. And the reality is a lot of folks, if I'm honest, struggle with the moral trade-offs, the self-interested capitalist trade-offs. Like, you're working for a capitalist company that tells you they're maximizing value for shareholders, but you're scared of maximizing value for yourself.
Let's talk about the mindset then. What mindset blocks wealth building opportunities? And, what advice do you specifically have around that conversation of breaking free?
So I'll talk about it in the concept of the persona that buys a business, like on that day when
Okay.
they execute, because it's the easiest way to talk about it. So most of my folks start off working a job. Um, in fact, I'll walk you through an example of one of my guys that went through my program and closed, because it's even easier. So one of my guys had a great job, top 10 company in the world, over 300 grand, making a lot of money. Tell him he's got to go back in the office. He's like, F that. That's an hour one-way commute. That's 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week. Not worth it. Juice not worth the squeeze. So he had been looking for a business for a year and only sent 2 offers. He signed up with my program. We had him doing 2 offers a month. And so 2 or 3 months in, he has a deal signed up under letter of intent, which means he sent an offer for the business, the seller accepted. Now he's just validating that the business is what he thought it was. And as we go through the process of fundraising, negotiating the purchase agreement, now let me answer your question. This person, Brian Hansen, who I love, went from doing everything his boss said on a job at a top 10 company. 'Cause that's what you do. Even if you have a great idea, you typically give it to your boss, because if you shine too much, they fire you or repurpose you. To an entrepreneur, which maximizes the value relative to their resources, right? So that's the first step. Then they go to a deal professional. So that's negotiating deals almost at a poker table about businesses. So you got to learn that process. To fundraising and making $1 million bet on a business you haven't run yet. And so that person that's at this third kind of standard deviation away from their day job is a person that doesn't take crap from anyone. And so how do you go from saying yes to everything at your job to not taking crap from anyone? And that's the mindset shift. Is that you got to be the person that for those 40 hours says yes, 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 yes. And then over here it's probably 50-50 yes, heck no. sort of, no, let's change this, not enough. And then I'll add a bit, and hopefully I'm not boring anyone. A lot of my clients are in their 30s and 40s. They're dealing with sellers who are in their 60s, brokers who are in their 60s. So there's like this respect that you give someone who's been on the planet longer than you. That's reasonable, right?
Sure.
But in the deal game, those people may be leveraging their age to lie to you. So sometimes you have to tell a person that deserves respect that that story you just told isn't acceptable, and I either need the data or I'm going to walk away. And so the two mindsets are that the person who brings a $3 million Brinks truck or duffel bag doesn't take crap from anyone. And that person has to look at a person maybe twice their age and say, show me the data or I walk. And those are the two biggest mind shifts. And that's a lot about what my program helps people get to is sort of, you have to be a sort of gladiator that you've never been before. So how do you kind of awaken that gladiator inside of you?
So let's talk about the dangers buyers face during acquisitions. What are the biggest lies and landmines, especially regarding personal guarantees in that process?
So I'm one of the few people that will use a relationship analogy. So I'm going to go for it. So a lot of people end up in what I call deal heat. They find their first deal, the first time the seller accepts their offer for the business. Now all of a sudden they're thinking I can let this day job go and run into this business where I have $1 million control. I'm already in love with this deal before I've done due diligence. And so one of the biggest traps is a psychological one. It's that owning this business, if it's solid, if I can run it, if the deal's good, is probably a 10x opportunity relative to my job. So people just start running towards it. And a lot of these deals are funky. The other trap that people get into is they're limited in resources. So maybe they only have 50,000 bucks liquid, which is very reasonable. And they're saying, hey, I need to put all this money into my deal. Well, if that's the case, you need a quality of earnings and a purchase agreement. So you need a quality of earnings provider and a lawyer. And what you'll do is say, okay, well, my 50 grand needs to go into the deal. So I'm gonna go find the cheapest resources over here, which means you're gonna find yourself in the worst deal because you only have 50K and you want to put it all in the transaction. And so one of the other pitfall I find people getting into is sort of capital allocation in terms of you may want to borrow 20 or 30 grand from friends to have enough money to do diligence, to not get into a wonky deal because you're cash constrained and you have a personal guarantee, to your point.
What are some of the real world examples of other risks that buyers encounter and really strategies to protect themselves in?
So I spoke at the University of Chicago earlier this year. And funny enough, it was like 20 students and one broker drove 2 hours to give me heck. And at the end of the conversation, we disagreed on a lot, but we agreed on in a transaction of this magnitude, the side with the better and smarter team of advisors will win. And it was kind of interesting because we had different sides of stuff, but we agreed on that. The reason that's so important is because real life examples. So I had a guy who sold a seven-figure, so $1 million business to Vanguard. He was looking to buy a business because he's in his 40s. He's not done working yet. And he was looking at a business where the broker had a very fancy finance degree. And so it made it feel like the financials from this broker would be pristine and above the average, which is pretty messy. We got into the deal and the business did man security. So think about security at any major sports center in your city or any major federal building. All right. So they did that kind of stuff. So we're looking at the books and we looked at the invoices to see if they added up to the revenue, and they didn't. So we kept asking for invoices, to test some invoices, to look at some invoices. You know what the guy said? He said, hey, they're all in paper, man. Where should I send the 78 boxes? So we asked for like 10 or one box. And after a while, he just wouldn't give it up. And I had to call my client and say, hey, it's very likely this person just deposited $1 million in the business to make it look like he made $1 million in profit when he's really break even. And he's trying to sell you a business for 4 million bucks that's really not worth anything. You
Oh,
got to
well.
walk away. And so that's a real life example of where had you been in deal heat, you would have bought a crater, not a mountain. And had you had a sleepy advisor, which a lot of these folks are because they're only getting paid 5 or 10 grand, you wouldn't have had somebody to call you and tell you the scenario that likely happened. So you'd have been sitting there thinking, the bank's going to underwrite this. Why shouldn't I do it? And now you're bankrupt. So fortunately, he was working with me and he didn't. But those are the stakes that you're playing with.
No, that makes sense. So let's talk about, why is it better to have a guide like a Sherpa instead of just relying on courses or general advice when you're buying a business?
It's simple. You'd be stupid not to have a Sherpa if you can afford it. Here's why. So you are making a bet that's probably 10 times the size of your biggest bet, which is probably your house. As a first-time buyer, you're doing it for the first time. And you're going against sellers and brokers that have been selling something, whether it's truth or lies, for 30 years. And you're going to go with your W-2, say yes, everybody tells the truth because there's consequences of lying in corporate America, to a world where everybody has a potential to lie and an economic motivation to lie. And you're going to run
Oh,
into
well,
that barn that's on fire by yourself to try to
carrying
get
your
a
duffel
deal
bags of
done.
cash.
Right. Carrying bags of cash, enough to totally bankrupt your family, have your wife look at you sideways, your kids change schools,
Sure.
because you won't spend 10 or 15 grand on a Sherpa. And here's the thing, I've been in this 15 years. I still look up to people that have been in it 30. But I'll tell you, I will mop the ground with somebody who's a first-time buyer if I was selling my business easily. And so these first-timers need to think about, when do you want to pay the piper? I remember in college, I told my roommate, when do you want to pay the piper, man? You want to pay the piper now or later? Either way, they're getting paid.
Let's dig into this. What makes mentorship so critical in navigating the acquisition process successfully? And at the heart of this, why is buying a business often outperform starting one from scratch?
Sure. So I'll start with the second and come back to the first. So the reason this is so much better is that 96% of businesses fail in the first 4 years. So you hear about the unicorns in the paper and you think that, oh, if I start, I'll be them. But no, if you're truly prudent, you're thinking 96% chance I'm done in 4 years and all I did is throw a bunch of resources in a dumpster fire. Whereas 96% of business acquisitions actually work out. Some of which because they bought good businesses, some of which because they worked their behind off to make bad businesses good. So you flip, you invert the numbers. So, okay, I'm in Vegas and I'm betting. Do I bet $100 on the 96% fail bet or the 96 succeed bet? That's an obvious bet. So then go back to your first question. A lot of people just sort of like they sit in this analysis paralysis going back and forth on what they should do. They get into these cohort programs. So imagine me, you, and 20 of our best friends asking questions about deals once a week to some expert. Well, you had 4 questions that were mission critical this week. So did I. You got a question in this week. I get one next week. Both of our decisions had a 48-hour time lapse. So we failed 2 times, even though we were in a cohort with somebody we paid to talk to us once a week. So cohort stuff is baloney, man. I talk to my clients 1 hour every week, emails, phone calls, text messages. I had 10 text messages from clients today, but it's because a lot of these decisions are in 24 hours. They're bespoke, nuanced. They require 2 hours of analysis of the stuff before, 2 hours of sort of knowledge of what's happening next. And so if you don't have someone that's ready for one-on-one time right away, which is a very unreasonable thing to ask of most people if they're not offering, you paid somebody and you're still flying blind. That's why mentorship and one-on-one time is so important, because you can pay for a solution that won't help you. And isn't that terrible? You killed the Disneyland trip to pay some joker that isn't available to you.
No, that makes sense. Let's talk about the advantages of an acquisition over building a startup. You mentioned unicorns. And why should more people consider that route?
Most things that are sexy don't pay. Startups, sports, entertainment, movies. If you want to go into those professions, you recognize that I'm making a terrible logical bet, hoping that I'm a unicorn. The reason business acquisition works, and people call it boring businesses, and I'm kind of 50-50 on that term, but it's directionally correct. It's like your AC breaks down, you're in Texas. I promise you're going to pay somebody to fix it. So do
Oh,
you want to
yeah.
be the person calling to get it fixed or the person catching the call to get it fixed? And you know what? If me and my wife work, we don't have time to call 3 people. So the first person that says they can show up with the quickest return time gets paid what they ask. And I don't care about the market rates for HVAC in my city. If I'm in Dallas and my stuff breaks down and you can get here today, I'm paying. And so it flips it to, hey, I think this thing in the future may be viable, subject to a bunch of investors and a bunch of things that won't happen for years. No, to somebody who buys a thing, or like I had 2 clients that bought a landscaping business in Texas. So when your grass gets 2 inches long and your neighbors are yelling at you and your HOA is about to fine you, don't you get a landscaper? Yep. And do you price that? Maybe after 6 months, but the first person that shows up and does a good job has a very good chance of keeping your business. So the likelihood of success is 96%, but I wanted to give you some real examples of like your roof's leaking. You gonna spend a week figuring out who's the best person to do that, or who can show up today. So then what I hear from everyone is that most home services, you can't get them on the phone. So that means all you gotta do is buy one and pick up the gosh darn phone, and you got competitive advantage and 96% chance of winning. So, like, I tell people, like, "Look, if I could go to Vegas, man, and if I could bet on any game that had 96% success, you know where I'd be sitting? In a table in Vegas."
Elliot, let's talk about passive income then. What's the unfiltered truth? What's your hot take here? And why is it often misunderstood in the context of business ownership?
You know, it's like that retirement, in Mexico or in Greece with $1 million house and servants and fresh fruit falling off the trees. Everybody loves it, but it's not happening for most of us. Is it possible? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's not possible. But if I have passive income, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm not selling it to you. I promise you I'll give it to somebody in my family or that I like because it's so rare. And so it's one of those things where it's like a hole in one in golf. Like, do you like it? Yeah. Would you bet that your next 18 holes you're gonna get one? No. So so what is the alternative? Is probably a good way to handle this. It's sort of like if you want something that's amazing, my first question to you is how hard do you want to work for it? So passive income is a possible scenario, but working really hard to make a lot of money is another one. Well, here's the thing. 100% of my clients are already working really hard to make money. So what I'm
True.
saying is just go work for yourself. If your job's paying you 250 grand, I promise you their math is you're making me 1 million. Why don't you bet that same time we're gonna make yourself 1 million? Now, if you get into a scenario where it's passive, that's great. But at first, you're gonna have to fight just to get control of a business asset that throws off cash. And so the first battle is getting control of an asset that throws off cash. Getting into a place where it's passive, where you hire general managers you trust, or you put it on automatic, is a second order thing. The first thing is get control of a money tree. And so this passive income thing to me is one of those things people sit in their garage and play around thinking about. It's not investing, it's speculation. It's hunting for gold in the hills of California. You want a 96% chance of winning? Go buy a profitable business and let that, you know, passive income thing come to the percentage of people that it'll come to. But the freedom that comes with owning your own business is special enough by itself to to sort of justify a lot of hard work. Did I answer the question? I hope I did.
No, this was good. It's making me think. So I see the passive income as the dream, the goal, but then also the business model has to throw off enough cash to get the business into that position. Um, and you've got to scale it up accordingly to then be able to earn from it. And I think most people and honestly, maybe most businesses don't reach that level to where they can do the autonomy at a scale that provides you that freedom like you talked about. So I
There
thought
we
that was
go.
a good answer.
That's really it. It's sort of one of my dad's favorite songs is this old school blues song called Compared to What. So compared to spending the next 12 months walking into a job where I tell my boss yes, how much better is doing the same amount of work and making myself $1 million? If I can then make it passive, even better, right?
Sure.
But
You're
compared
already
to going
winning.
back to a job for another 24 months, not feeling great. And that's the other thing. There's a personal side of this, bro. So when you don't feel great at work, you bring that stuff home. Your wife feels that, your kids feel that. And so we don't talk about the toil of the family that deals with the man who knows he's worth more than he's getting paid or is capable of more. But that stuff affects generations. So compared to going to a job, buying a business is a way better outcome, better opportunity to sort of get to $1 million wealth. And that's why I push my clients to kind of figure out, like, are you really going to invest the time to do this? Or should you just go love on your family? Because really you shouldn't be in this camp and then waste a whole lot of time over here.
No, I like that perspective. You're absolutely right that every decision the family lives through and really every price the family pays together as well. So
Every
that makes
price
sense.
the family pays together. I'm going to use that. That's a good one.
You go right ahead. Elliot, your website, social media, podcasts, and resources are all included in the show notes, making it easy for audience to find and connect with you. But before I let you go, I like to ask my guests, share something personal that our audience will find interesting or surprised to know about you. Just something that maybe you don't normally talk about, but it would be a fun surprise.
Sure. I'll say this. So the freedom of owning my own business has allowed me to move to South America. So I live in Medellin, Colombia. I have for 3 years. And I'm currently in Europe doing this podcast because I have the ability to travel when I want. Now, I talk to clients all day, so my clients get the same level of service. It's just that I have the flexibility to work from where I want. I want the same thing for my clients. I don't talk about it a lot because I don't like bragging about my life situation to people. But I think at times you have to kind of say what the freedom of the thing that you're trying to help people get to, what it actually gives you. And so I don't talk about this often, but I felt the urge to be honest. It didn't happen in year one, right? But 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 I'm 42 and I'm able to do things my peers can't, and it's completely enabled by me owning a small business. And so I wanted to just kind of say that because it should underscore that the end goal is worth the work. I'm living it. So if it's something that's interesting to you, let's talk about it. But we're not talking about like rainbows and unicorns and no, you're talking about a life that I know very well. So hopefully that resonates with people.
That's a fantastic answer. And Medellin, I've got a friend that's his favorite place in the world. I can see that. Elliot, thank you so much for being on with us today,
Thanks for
and
having me.
enjoy your day.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of Planet Wealth Fortunes of the Brave, check out our other videos for more insights and strategies to elevate your financial freedom. You can subscribe right here and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community and take your financial future to the next level. I'll see you in the next video.